Yeah, I'm a detransitioner. I transitioned male to female at 18. Uh, I was on hormones for about 4.5 years, um, and I detransitioned about 7 months ago. Um,
Oh, wow. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. And I'm so excited today to have this young person who I actually saw on TikTok. I hate TikTok, but I saw them on TikTok and I just zoned in on you, my friend. And I was like, oh my God, because we have another detransitioner. They don't exist. And so today, first, thanks for liking, subscribing, helping this channel grow. It means the world to me and getting these awesome young voices out there to help this stuff stop. So, with that, I have Noah. And why don't you just introduce yourself, my friend, and then we'll move forward.
yeah, hi there. I'm Noah. I'm 23. Yeah, I'm a detransitioner. I transitioned male to female at 18. Uh, I was on hormones for about 4.5 years, and I detransitioned about 7 months ago. Um,
Oh, wow.
I go to college. uh,
Wow.
I like strategy games. I don't know. There's
Okay. So wait, how long were you on hormones for?
4.5 years. Yeah.
4.5 years. Wow, that is so. Well, so first off, thanks so much, Noah. I super appreciate you trusting me with the story, and it just breaks my heart. I don't know. We're gonna get into your story, but I just hate this whole trans space. I'm a 63-year-old female who transitioned 33 years ago. So, it's really heartbreaking for me to see young people get into this situation. And so again, I just really appreciate you trusting that I'm here to sort of bring your story to the forefront so that other young people don't necessarily go down this route. So with that, why don't you just tell me a little bit about why you chose to transition? We could start there.
Yeah, I think there was just like what I'll describe as like this, soup of psychological factors, psychological and social factors that like predisposed me to like develop a trans identity, right? Um, I had a pretty normal like happy childhood, honestly. Uh, no complaints really. Went to I was in like a small community, went to this small private school. Um, I guess I was nerdy. I wasn't very good at sports. I don't know. I never felt like super included amongst the boys. It's like the male social hierarchies are sort of when you're a child. It's basically based around like sports and everything. So, I never like felt that connected to masculinity just because of those early experiences. And I think that's just like a predisposing factor that you have to have in order to develop a trans identity.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
yeah. So I guess I guess it's hard to overstate how much like not being good at sports like affected me because like I played baseball when I was in elementary school, and then I was pretty decent at it when the coaches were pitching, but then like when the when we moved to kid pitch, I got like nailed by it, and like I could never like do it well again. So um
Mm.
yeah, but in general, I think I was like pretty happy. I wasn't like honestly terribly gender nonconforming. I didn't have like severe dysphoria growing up or anything. Um, I think the or really I was pretty happy until like seventh or eighth grade. I started to develop some mental health issues. Like our family dog got cancer and died, and it was like really sad, and it sort of like set off this cycle where I'd go through like periods of depression followed by periods of like just like ups and downs. um yeah, I guess. Okay, so in middle school I had like boys as friends, but that's when like I started making friends with different types of people, and like I found myself sort of drawn to like the kids who were gonna grow up to be kind of queer, right?
Yep.
Like I was really into like Steven Universe, and like I feel like everyone around me sort of felt like I was like queer or in some way, but they couldn't quite figure me out. Um, yeah. So then I also think there was just this latent idea of myself as a woman that was floating around in my brain. I don't really know why.
Do you think that you were influenced by any other people around you? Let me ask this. Were you on social media at the time?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? Is that there were
Yeah,
all of these factors floating around, but
yeah,
that metastasized into a trans identity when I kind of got like exposed specifically to these like online Reddit communities, like RMTF. Have you heard of the Gender Dysphoria Bible?
what?
Have you heard of this?
No.
Okay, look, it's this document, and it's basically supposed to be like an overview of like gender dysphoria and what it is, and it kind of it's written in such a way that I feel like anybody who has like some subconscious desire to be trans could re-narrativize their
Sure,
entire life to convince
sure.
themselves they have gender dysphoria. Like, have you heard of the button question? Like,
No.
they do this question. It's like, if you could press a button and change to the opposite sex, like, would you press the button? And if you would press the button, that's taken as like evidence that you might not be cisgender, basically, right? But
Dude.
but they, I'm serious. No, that's how these community
So
like
is this like on Reddit and
yeah,
all
yeah.
of these sort of, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
like RMTF and the people are like say like, oh, these online communities, it's just online, but I was like a chronically online teenager, you know? There's a
Yep.
lot of chronically online teenagers. We live in like
Yes.
a sort of atomized society, you know?
Yes.
Um
Yes.
and so like I had this latent desire to be feminine. It started when I did like a face app swap. Like the face app things, like
Sure.
I did the face swap and I looked at it and it just made me feel really happy for some reason. I couldn't like I couldn't really explain it. But I didn't really consider transitioning until I sort of I got exposed to like some pro trans media, and like I had always been more liberal, but I didn't really know anything about it.
Mhm.
And it was when I found out more about it, that was like the first stage. And then there was this moment where I was like, okay, wait, am I trans? Am I trans? Like, how would I know that? And I Googled it. And as soon as you Google it, you basically end up in these online communities. Um,
So the question, you Google the question, am I trans
yeah.
or something like what makes me,
Like,
and
how
then
do I
it
know if
just,
I'm trans? Yeah.
then there's all these links that take you to like Reddit or other, or can you like give me does it say like what would, so if I Googled, am I trans, would it say you're
Well,
trans if you,
the first thing that shows up is like stuff from like the Mayo Clinic, like symptoms of gender dysphoria, right?
okay,
But
okay,
that's the first step though, is you look at that and then you're like, okay, well, I want to look at experiences from people from trans people to see if I connect with those, right?
right.
And so so like if you may have doubts, like I might have doubted, like, well, I wasn't super gender nonconforming as a child, but if you go into these communities you find like, oh, all these other people weren't actually that gender nonconforming as a while. Like, this person lived for 30 years as a man and then transitioned. So like, is it really it basically, like, have you heard of the idea of your egg cracking?
Oh my God, that's the one I have heard of, dude. I want to barf.
Yeah,
I actually want to
so
barf.
when
What?
yeah, it's like these there's like a there's like this there's like these Discord servers that I was in, and there's literally like people, there's like egg cracking like Discord servers where people who are questioning come in, and like talk to people, and like, but like the thing is, people they have motivated reasoning to kind of like they believe they're trans, so it reinforces
That's right.
their idea of it. And the thing is, most people, I think, when they transition, a lot of them start out in these online communities, and then once it gets to a certain point in their transition, they kind of move on. And that's what happened to me. So I wasn't in these communities for like a long time. It was just for that like first year. It was about 8 months between when I realized I was trans and when I started hormones, and then like during COVID, that that I was really immersed in these.
There you go. You just named like three. Could you explain to the people what being an egg is? Like, can you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so you know there's this idea that you can one day come across the idea that you could be trans, right? And
Hmm.
you connect with the idea, and someone who previously did not appear to be they appear to be like maybe a normal heterosexual man, they basically realize they're egg cracks, and they realize I have this inner feminine essence or whatever. And that's so it's like when you see someone who's questioning their gender, you would say their egg cracking is when they have the realization that they're trans.
Wow. Just, it's so creepy, friend. I just, yucky. So there you are, 8 months, which is a long time, to be honest with you. So on some level, it is grooming. Do you not think this is sort of a grooming kind of? thing happening?
I don't know if I like the term grooming
Sure.
exactly because it
Okay.
has
That's
specific
fair.
like material implications, but
Sure.
I
Sure.
do think I think it constitutes sort of like maybe a cognito hazard almost,
Okay.
where
Gotcha.
there's a chance you'll because like there's a chance you'll get sucked into it, and like it's not impossible to live a fulfilling life as a transgender person. It's just not ideal. Why would you transition if you don't have to, you know? So yeah.
Would you call it more of an indoctrination as opposed to
Okay.
grooming?
Well, I think the part of the this is an important part of it is like it's
Yes.
the ideology behind it. It's the idea that if you identify as a woman, you are one. Like I came across this website, right, called Am I a Girl or whatever.net, and it's this website
Okay.
and it's like, are you a girl? And you click a button and it's like, oh, you're a girl now because you identify as one.
Wow.
And that I think is because once that idea that you are like a woman just by virtue of you feeling very strongly that you are, once that idea takes root, it kind of self perpetuates itself.
That's right.
Um
Yes.
and like so everything sort of just follows.
So wow, man. For me, when I transitioned back millions of years ago, I had to go through a whole system, right? Which I call gatekeeping, which is so incredibly important. But I didn't do it until I was 30 years old. But I can tell you that I never. When someone would ask me, well, what does it mean to be a man? I couldn't answer that. Or what do you feel like a man? I couldn't really answer that. I just wanted to. There's a difference in feeling and I wanted to look like how I look, right? But I always know that I'm still female, and that was always what we understood as you might know, I sort of don't call myself transgender. I call myself transsexual
Yeah, yeah.
because I do have a disorder. I feel totally solid in that, blah, blah, blah. I never changed my sex. We always knew that as transsexuals. Then comes along your generation where now they're saying to you, if you feel like a woman, you are a woman.
Yeah, yeah. Uh
Absurd.
no, well it's like it's the thing is it's one thing to tell someone like you can look like a woman, you can occupy the social role of a woman, you can be more feminine, you can occupy this trans feminine social role. That's one thing. But
Yes.
they tell people that you can be a woman in essentially the same way that females are women, and that's just not true. So that
No.
feeling that you have inside, that heart's desire, because I feel like most trans people, they want to be the other sex. They're not that's what they really want, that's what their hearts want. and and so when you tell someone that they can become a woman like that, you're saying that they can fulfill that feeling,
That's
right?
right.
But in reality, you can't. You have to be satisfied with sort of being a simulacrum of the other sex, almost. You know, like
Right on. Right on. You said it. That's exactly right. Like I said, I'm not a man. I never have been a man. I look like a man. I fulfill that role so the world sees me that way. So that's why I say it's assimilate. I assimilated into the world, but I know exactly that's why I always get upset when young people like you are being told, well, you can be a woman. Dude, you're never going to be a woman. I don't care how many hormones. So what? Okay, so here you are 8 months in that space, and then how did you start to do the actual physical? Did you start a physical transition, like taking
yeah.
hormones?
So
Okay.
I made an appointment when I was still 17 at this informed consent clinic. It was during
Wow.
COVID. So the day
Wow.
after I turned 18, I had an online appointment, and
Okay.
that same day I had a prescription for estrogen, oral estrogen. Um,
Online?
Yeah, online. I think you probably today would have to go in for at least one in-person appointment, but it was during COVID, so it was online.
Oh
Uh,
my God, dude.
so like that, that's how the informed consent model works. They
That's
just
right.
give it to anyone who comes in. You just like they'll ask you questions, but you know how to answer the questions if you want to get your hormones. So
Do they teach you how to answer the questions on some of these forums, like on some of these like transgender forums, like how to get through the system?
well, people talk about it, right? Because often people
Yeah.
have like more non-binary identities, right? And they'll so but they'll go to their doctor, they'll just say they're a binary like trans woman or whatever because it's easier to get care that way. But a lot of people they really more identify as non-binary,
Right.
which I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the non-binary stuff because
Yeah.
it's actually when I first like realized I was trans. Initially, I thought that I was a binary trans woman, and then I sort of like my parents did. We did a lot of talking. They really tried their best to dissuade me.
Hmm.
Uh,
Right.
not even it felt transphobic at the time, but I don't really think they were being. I think they just knew it wasn't right for me.
Yeah.
Um, and oh crap, what was I? Where was I? What was I saying
Well,
before?
it's all right, my friend. There's a lot going on, a lot of information. Again, thank you so much for doing this. Some young person will hear this. We were talking about that the estrogen and getting into that, and then I said online. Do they in these forums? Do they kind of teach you how to navigate through the system? But and then we were talking about non-binary and
Oh,
how I have the same thing as you.
yeah.
I have a mixed feeling about it.
The thing is, right, like I kind of became convinced that I wasn't trans one, maybe I'm just non-binary, and I sort of identified as non-binary for like 3 or 4 months, but that kind of provided me a space to like, oh, I've been non-binary for 3 or 4 months. Well, I just sort of felt like I needed to fully transition in order to like escape like this male gender role that I felt very constricted by.
Mm.
Um, I wish I hadn't felt the need to identify like out of that, and I wish I just experimented with my expression and just stayed like living as a man. But I
Well,
really
that's
felt like I
yeah.
wanted to be a woman, and it felt like I needed, if I took estrogen, that I would like be a woman. That's like what I was. That's what I believe because that's the attitude online.
That's the
Um,
attitude, right? Women, trans women are women, trans men are men, right? That is literally what they're saying to you, which is a complete and total lie. That's why I say no child. To me, you're a child at 17, but 10-year-olds taking puberty blockers. What? They're like telling these kids you're gonna be a boy, and you're that's just never gonna happen for a little girl. She's gonna grow up and realize I'm not really a man, or I don't have a penis. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, what are we doing? So at 17, you made an online appointment. Could you have gone into this space at 17 and gotten the hormones?
No, no, you have to be 18, but once you
Okay,
get 18, you literally it's just you sign a form and you get them. That's
I
that's
see.
the model.
Okay,
There's no gatekeeping really. That is
right.
if you live in like a big city basically. I live in a big city, so
Okay, yeah. Well,
um
other people I have interviewed at 16, they went into Planned Parenthood and got their hormones at 15 and 16 with no parental consent. Exactly like,
really? Wow.
yes, it's
Okay.
shocking, dude.
That is
And
that
they
is shocking.
It is actually shocking, and they just got the hormones the same day like you, and walked out at 18. You're an adult. That's what
Yeah.
we have in this country.
Yeah.
18 is an adult. You can do whatever you need to do. So, but that being said, you're still young at 18. You don't know everything, and
No,
now
my
you're
brain
in
was
this
not fully
whole.
developed.
Oh my God! And also you're having some issues. We used to have a thing called gender nonconforming. It was like you could be a feminine dude or a masculine woman, and no,
Well,
we didn't have these stereotypes.
Well, what's ironic is that people still think that, like, oh, you can be a feminine man or a masculine woman, but at the same time, people, transition just like
That's right.
in order to, so it's like, if the gender roles don't really matter, like, why do you, want to transition, right?
That's
So
right.
this just speaks to some of the sort of contradictory aspects of the ideology,
The hypocrisy. There's
Um,
a lot of hypocrisy, contradiction. They're
yeah,
always changing.
that's why there's constant like infighting right now, or like where other like trans men can be lesbians and stuff like that. And the reason there is because the labels are contradictory anyways.
I
So
know. I
so
know.
people are kind of fine with contradictory labels. Like
Clearly they are. I mean, like I said, dude, I did it a million years ago. I did it. I was a lesbian, right? And I totally was like, I don't want to even be near that anymore. I want to be seen as a dude, as a straight dude. Well, like chicks, you know what I mean? And like, so I
yeah,
just don't understand this idea that, now I'm going to be a lesbian. Look at me. Like, what? Like,
yeah.
these kids are so mixed up, and it's quite sad to me. So now you're taking estrogen, and that was interesting about your parents. So
Mhm.
were you living at home during the summer? Or were you in college?
Yeah, no, I was living at home. It was my senior year. I started at high school. I started estrogen without their knowledge. When I was still living with them, they figured it out like about 3 months when like they saw that my chest wasn't perfectly flat anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
yeah.
like I mean, they were upset, but like I was an adult, and they
That's
they
right.
couldn't really do anything.
No,
That's the thing is like I don't think you can talk someone like out of a trans identity really. It's like
no.
it's not like I'm honestly really glad that they eventually started using my name and pronouns after a couple of
Okay.
years, and I'm really glad we were able to stay in each other's lives because my mom really pushed me to wait on getting bottom surgery until I was like done with college and like felt really settled as an adult. And I think I mean that saved me from just making a seriously big mistake, you know. So I'm glad that they compromised to like stay in my life, you know.
Oh my God, that's great parenting. Just send your parents a lot of love from me because a lot of parents are confused and being put in weird positions. But I notice that some of the trans community sort of pulls the kids away from the parents. Like they won't understand. They're going to be transphobic. Did you see some
Well,
of that?
Well, it's the identity itself, like, you know, creates the barrier, right? Because you have this sincerely held, you know, identity, and I wanted like nothing more than the people in my life that were the most important to me to like see that like identity that was forming and that I had this really strong emotional attachment to, and so, it you know, it just it totally like warps your perspective on everything. And you know, from your side, you know, it looks like your parents like aren't willing to accept this thing that like you really need them to accept. But on the other side, they can tell like that, you know, like if I had been like, you know, gender nonconforming from a very young age, right? They probably, and like, you know, wanted to come out at 12 or whatever, like they probably would have done that. But you know, I wasn't. It was really out of the blue for them. Uh,
Yeah,
and I think that was a sign that like I wasn't like actually like a transsexual, you know?
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, well, that's parent. You know, I'm a parent, and I have a 13-year-old kid, and I think, and also being transsexual myself, that's the thing is like kids go through cycles of stuff. They're always playing with stuff and clothes and acting and all of this, but mostly you, from the beginning of this conversation, you were just not a dude's dude. You weren't into sports. You weren't into like doing dude stuff.
Yeah.
You're more of a nerdy kind of dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, my kiddo is a nerdy kind of dude. Piano and PlayStation and just doing things that are doesn't really like sports very much. And but I don't see that as a problem, right? So, but I do understand, especially as a man, I think we do have these really weird, rigid roles that if you're not a dude, then you're just not going to be that. So I could literally see how you were so easily sort of pushed. So here you are taking your estrogen, your body's changing.
Yeah.
Did you start going to school at this time, college?
Yeah, no, I went into college at the time,
Okay.
and I was staying in this like student housing co-op that was very like, you know, left leaning, very queer, and so I was fairly like comfortable there. But I guess like, you know, being trans identified, right, like, and constantly like, you know, I did not pass at all like my first like
Okay.
1 or 2 years of transition. I never really passed. I passed a little bit, kind of like my third and fourth year, but I never passed that well. So
Okay.
it just like I mean, it just like, you know, creates it creates an unnecessary, it was just like an unnecessary barrier. We made it harder to make friends on campus, harder to get
Yeah.
involved in my classes, like,
Oh.
um,
Mm.
and it just it also was just like this massive distraction, right? Because I was a
Yes.
lot more focused on my transition than I was on like my academics.
Yes.
Um, uh, yeah, like, and you know, like I was like uh you know, working at Starbucks for a while, just to get like the insurance for facial feminization surgery. um
Did you do
and
that?
yeah,
Did you do?
I did, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which I mean, obviously they couldn't have done that good a job because
Well,
because
I don't. No, no. I get you look. You have that very androgynous look.
yeah,
You
no,
know what I mean?
that's because they did do it. They did do some work, and I do sort of I do regret the facial surgery, but I mean it could have been way worse.
Can
I
I
really
ask
feel like
you?
I got off pretty light. Yeah,
Can I ask you what you did?
yeah. I had like hair transplants put in here, so like if you see it like goes back in a
But
triangle like that, this
so
part,
what does that do? It makes it look
uh,
more feminine.
it rounds out your hairline. I had my brow bone shaved down. So
Oh,
like if you
wow.
look here, like this, there would have been like a bump here.
I
I had a
see.
rhinoplasty. I wish I hadn't let them do that. I didn't really want it anyways. And then I had cheek implants, small ones. I had like a lip lift, and they put fat in my lip from my belly. They did a little bit of my chin shaved down, and then they trachea shaved. That was it.
So like six different or seven different surgeries
Yeah,
over time, over like a
no,
year or
it was
two.
all one surgery. Yeah.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
dude. They just went in and like, literally,
yeah, that's what they do.
wow.
They have facial masculinization surgery too, although
What?
it's a little rarer. Yeah, like they can put in like brow bone implants and stuff. I mean, they have some that actually look pretty good. Some of them, yeah. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Wow. I had the only surgery I had was my chest. But that being said, like, just dude, for a chick, all you do is grow a beard and a mustache. and go bald. You look like a dude. And put some
Yeah.
tattoos on and go
Yeah.
to the gym and you're a dude. I
Yeah.
think it is 100% different for a male to female,
It's
right?
it's harder
Yeah.
it's harder to pass. I mean, like
Yeah.
it's also this is part of the problem is that these online communities kind of like lead people to be deluded about how well they're gonna pass. And like, you know, if you have like dysphoria, right? Like you really have dysphoria and but you're like, you know, like extremely tall, you would never pass and your life would be like really miserable living as a trans woman or
Sure.
whatever. I feel
Sure.
like it's reasonable not to transition just for that reason. So like
Yes.
like
Yes.
people need to be like I don't know how what percentage of trans women pass, but most people can't just based off genetics, right?
That's right. You're right. All of those things. And that's what I say. You better make this choice, understanding you're not going to change your height or your hands, right? Or any of that. It is much easier for a woman to look like a dude than it is for a dude to look like a woman. But that's why they want to give you puberty blockers that, so that they can stunt all those. I'm actually
Yeah,
anti all of that stuff.
I mean, like I kind of understand. Okay, like you know, if you have a kid and you know that they have this trans identity that's so deeply rooted that it's never going to go away, then like I can maybe see where it
But
would.
how are you going to
Yeah,
know
but
that?
how do you know?
You don't know.
And like when you medicalize a kid that young, you're kind of like putting them on a straight pathway to a trans identity, which you know, again, is I feel like it should be kind of a last resort transitioning. You know,
That's
like
right, my friend.
yeah,
That's right. Great. Thank you for saying that. So do I. I mean, look, I have a great life, 3 years
yeah.
of this, and I did it as an adult. No one says anything. My life is amazing. I assimilated back in the world. That's not what they're teaching you. And also, you change your mind. You actually, so there you are doing this, living this life. But I feel that you're dealing with a little struggle. You said in school, you're dealing with being trans and making friends. And was it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, I had undiagnosed like bipolar one. I was just unstable. I
Oh,
was struggling with
yeah,
substance abuse, for
yeah,
like most of college.
yeah.
Like, but you know, having this identity that really was not like authentic, just kind of put me at like sort of socially like handicapped me in like every way, right? Um,
Right.
like, cause you know, I feel like some people like really like soul pass or whatever. I don't think I like soul passed or anything. Like I just like wasn't. I'm just not that naturally feminine, which is like it's you know it's confusing why I ended up like developing a trans identity. But
No, it isn't. I actually, from my perspective, sitting here, I can act and also interviewing a ton of detransitioners. You are exactly
yeah,
like the rest of them. They got caught up in something, and you just said you had undiagnosed bipolar. Was that
yeah,
it? Yeah.
and okay, no, this is the thing, right? Is that so the context of me actually detransitioning it happened in the wake of this extremely severe manic episode and psychotic break is what
Okay.
happened.
Okay.
So is that I like I literally just so, you know I was going up into my first ever like really big manic episode. I wasn't diagnosed before that, and so I had religious psychosis and I had like a huge number of delusions for like about 2 months. You know, I was like sitting at my in my house thinking that like aliens were talking to me and like I was writing down, you know, so I was like literally like in all these delusions. And then those like what happened is that I was promised that like I would be transformed into a female, right? That like and I yeah, because I was deluded, I genuinely believed that. And then when
Yes.
eventually I realized that this was all delusions and came back to reality,
Yes.
the you know the jarring like distinction between the reality of being a male and my true desire, which was to be a female, just like it just like broke my trans identity. Um,
Wow.
Another thing was that you know the voices I was hearing, they told me to stop estrogen. Like they were very insistent about it, and so in the month after that those delusions all broke, I kind of like I was like, okay, maybe I should listen to this because I think it was my subconscious talking to me, and so it just like
Totally.
it's like for me like the that initial moment when I realized I was trans, the closest thing I can relate that to was when I had this psychotic break. So for me, I really do think it may have been a form of psychosis or like a
Wow.
delusion that broke apart just due to the circumstances of this particular
The
manic.
stress, your bipolar, whatever other things are going. There was another
Yeah.
person, detrans, female to male, that I interviewed. She had the same thing happen, but she became very religious. she said that God spoke to her. And, however you want to look at that, that's totally cool. I don't care. But I also think that is some kind of thing happening. It could have been a psychotic breakdown, and she just saw it as God, right? And the same thing was like, what are you doing? You're a woman. Like, you can't do this. Like, but she had already cut her breasts off, dude. And like, yeah. So,
Oh, wow.
she was so this is not rare. So many of the detransitioners said that they had manic episodes, psychotic episodes, like the testosterone made them go totally crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think the estrogen did, I think, cause like brain fog in retrospect. I didn't
Yes.
realize that I was having brain fog, but like, uh, but I think I was, because I'm just like a little sharper and faster, like being with regular T levels again. And I guess it's also like, it's just like male bodies are meant to run on testosterone and female bodies are meant to run on estrogen. It's like
Exactly.
you really the benefits
Yes.
in treating your dysphoria really have to outweigh the health risks, which are significant and I think under like
But they don't
you know,
want you to know that, dude. I almost
right.
died from the testosterone 15
Really?
years ago because I didn't have a hysterectomy and I'm a female. I am an actual, why am I doing this? Like, I'm an actual female, right? So, like, of course, I was one of the very first people to do this back in the day and they didn't even know. So, in long story short, my reproductive system got overloaded with testosterone when it didn't have any estrogen, and the whole thing just broke out. It just got septic, dude. And I was like, I was like, gonna die. And like, people were like, the doctors, I'll never forget, they were like, what is this? We've never seen anything like this. But what I'm trying to say here is I told that to the community and everyone said I was lying and that's not true. You see how they're blocking this information from you.
Well, it's like when you have this identity, right? You don't care about the risks, right? Like
Yeah, that's right.
it's
That's right.
like you don't care if you get like a pulmonary embolism or whatever from being on synthetic estrogen. It's like the risks outweigh the benefits, sort of
That's
like
right.
in your mind.
But how can a 17-year-old person like
Yeah,
you make that choice, or a 10-year-old, a
it,
30-year-old who's lived a long
yeah, no,
part of their life? I really do think could make a more understanding thing.
uh,
If I would have known that my whole system was going to get, I might have thought a little bit differently about how much testosterone I was taking.
and I think that fertility is like the it's the biggest thing you give up, I think, right?
That's
Like
right.
having kids is such it's such an important like life experience, right? Like we're organisms. We want to like reproduce ourselves. Right?
Reproduce. Yeah.
Everyone like
Yeah.
I always mourned like giving up my fertility to transition. I didn't bank because I was still living with my parents at the
So
time.
do you not have reproductive
Uh,
capabilities?
I probably do. Hopefully through natural means. I haven't been tested or anything,
Because you didn't do bottom surgery,
yeah, I
did
didn't
you?
do bottom surgery. Really, you can like like I'd say like things are recovered. But like I mean like it's like 30-40% of function of what it was like before. Like it's
How
it's
long have you been off of estrogen?
7 months now. So
That's not a lot.
not a lot. You think it'll improve?
Totally. Other detransitioners that I have talked to, it came back. You for sure. And also, you're young. I do really give hope to that, my friend. But you're right. Let's talk about that reproductive. Did they tell you things like this when
I
you
mean,
were?
they tell you like, yeah, I
They
knew I
don't.
knew what I was getting into, right? Like I knew exactly what I was getting into. I just
As
didn't
an
I just didn't care.
18-year-old, you knew what
Yeah,
you were getting into, not
but
as someone.
you know
Right.
when I was like okay like when I was 18 like I was really into politics. I was really into all these ideas. Like I had all this energy and stuff, and like I'm just a completely different person like 4 or 5 years later, and like I do
Wow.
realize like oh my god, I really want to have like a family, and I don't think I'm gonna be able to like have a family in the way I want living as a trans woman. um
No, you won't.
and that's just like you can't. I couldn't have predicted that would happen at 18, like so yeah.
No, because how do you know you want to have? No one wants to have a family. I don't think very many people want to actually have kids at 18. It's very rare, right? You want to go to college and have fun. And I mean, I didn't want to have kids until I met my partner who had a kid and I adopted. And now we're adopting another kid, right? At 63, I'm doing this. People are like, are you insane, dude? Like, no, I'm doing it. Don't tell me no. But that being said, I mean, at 18, I would have never thought about having children. But I'm going to give you some hope here, friend. I think you're going to be good. And I think just, keep getting your butt. Do you have to take testosterone shots now?
No, no, I was on
Right.
Clomid for like a few months just to help
Right.
spur the body's ability to produce testosterone. But no, my T levels are back to normal. So I mean, the body's ability to heal
Oh,
itself is amazing. Yeah, like
I'm so
I really
excited.
I feel like I got off pretty light, honestly. Like I feel fairly lucky. I'm just really glad it didn't go through because I had bottom surgery scheduled for October of 2023 at one point, and I had it scheduled for 2024, and I kept delaying it because I didn't have the logistics set up, and I was like nervous about it. And I just like I
Oh,
thank the Lord. I chalked that
seriously.
up to God, to like that I my subconscious managed to keep me from doing that to myself. So
Because you were going fast there, dude. You were just like
yeah, yeah,
estrogen, facial feminization, and next you're gonna have your penis cut off, and then what?
yeah.
Right? Like then what? There's no looking. I
It,
swear to God, dude. I swear, man, God did save you because somebody spoke to you and put you in this position because the detransitioners that I've spoken to had bottom surgery and they're just they're just the most depressed person.
it's
They actually look like a woman. And you don't.
yeah.
You don't. You look like
Uh,
a dude.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really am grateful that just I didn't get that surgery. So, uh,
But this is why your story is so important because some youngster is going to hear this, or even, I don't care if it's a youngster, even just somebody. You have to really, I didn't do that surgery, by the way. And I'm
yeah,
so happy I didn't do that surgery because it doesn't work on both
yeah.
sides.
I mean, even I mean, I don't. I think I think sometimes the MTF surgeries look okay, but the, I mean, phalloplasty, the technology is just not. It's not. I don't
Oh,
know. It's
dude.
not really there yet.
No,
You
let's
know,
be honest. Nope.
like
Sorry. I don't care. Anyone, you can call me whatever you want. Transphobic. Nope, dude. Why would you do that? It doesn't work. It's not like a normal penis. It's this thing. And they take stuff out of your arm and you're there and they mold it. And like, really, you need a penis that bad? Like the vagina surgery, it can look like, it actually can look like
yeah, like
but it's not
mythoplasty.
functioning. It's not. It doesn't like. So how about I don't know. This might be a little personal. And you don't have to ask.
Yeah, no.
Your sexuality. How do you feel sexually? Do you feel like you could be attracted to people? Does that
Yeah,
just
yeah, no, I mean, I was mostly attracted to women before transitioning. I think I've always been bisexual. Like,
yeah? I'm bisexual.
I,
Yeah,
I recall like fantasizing about men from a young age, but I kind of like crushed it down because I knew it wasn't
sure,
acceptable.
sure.
And it's so like, but around 16, like I knew I was bi,
Yeah,
but like when I transitioned, I guess like when my mind flipped and I was viewing myself as a woman, I found that I was more attracted to men than women because like
yeah.
just I think my brain just like want like that it felt like straight, I guess, and so yeah, I guess like I don't know, it really I didn't like have very much like success at dating honestly as a trans
Sure.
woman. I think that was more just down to me being like unstable, but like
Yeah.
that was sort of like caused by transitioning to some degree because it just made all of my
100%.
problems worse,
Yeah.
all of my other problems worse.
And also you're concentrating on transitioning and on navigating school and this idea that you're going to be a woman and there's just so much heaviness they're laying on you young people. That's the last thing that's it's just upsetting to me. I just tell you, man, as a person that it worked out for, I just when I see people like you, I just get so mad. I do because no, you should have never even been in that space until you
Yeah.
were actually mentally prepared to take all of this stuff on. And so so then you decide I'm not good with this. I'm totally coming out of it.
Yeah.
Did you have a community of people you were hanging out with at the time?
Well, so that's the thing is that I kind of like, I was really involved in this yeah, student housing cooperative and in school, and I basically fell into this like depressive episode because
Yeah.
I basically like bungled my classes and became just very overwhelmed, and so I like locked myself in like my room for like half a year probably.
Oh,
Um, and so I guess like I think sort of being very socially isolated for like about like a year or whatever is, part of what caused me to like come out of it because when you're in like a very strong social circle with like people who really view you as a woman, right, it affirms the identity. And I do think that I happened to uh like just be around my family that they gave me the space to like come to conclusions about detransitioning. Um,
did you talk to your parents about it?
yeah, no, I did. I mean, they were both like, they were both pleased, I guess. They
Yeah,
like,
of course.
they
Yeah.
want grandkids and stuff. Like,
Not only
um,
that, look, it's not easy. My parents had a really hard time. The
yeah,
last thing you want to see is your kid like do this unless you really know it's going to be something massive. But I think majority of parents that are normal parents, not trans parents, who really would understand you don't want your child to go down this. This is not an easy. They
It's
make it
not
seem like
ideal.
it's easy.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's just not ideal. Like
It's
like
not.
like
It's not. You
but
hadn't
yeah.
even lived life, dude. You were like 18 already, just
Yeah, I
slamming.
mean that's it's like, I mean it's just like frustrating 'cause, you know, it feels like like seriously, like since I've detransitioned, right?
Yeah.
And because once I when I you know, when I initially decided to detransition, I was still identifying as a woman, sort of. Like I
Okay.
hadn't given it up. It took like 3 or 4 months for me to
Okay.
really come to terms with the fact that my trans identity was not authentic, basically. And and you know, it was only, but it was very painful for the identity to die. And like I can understand like if someone couldn't go through with that, basically. Um, just because I mean, it's pretty difficult to admit you like blew up your entire life like mistakenly, you
But
know?
you didn't. I'm just gonna tell you as an old person here. No, 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 no. You have so much life ahead of you, kiddo. You're 24, 3 years old. You get, please don't. I think really the best advice I could say to you, if you even want to take my advice, who cares? It happened. It didn't ruin your life, by the
Yeah,
way, because you
I don't think
literally,
it did.
no, you bounced back hardcore. You look amazing. You're very good looking
Thank you.
guy, and I think honestly, and you're very smart. Are you going back to school?
Yeah, no, I'm finishing up this semester, so I get a math degree.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
What are you studying?
I'm a math major. I like
Of course you are.
math.
I mean, my kiddo is like super. His dad, his biological dad, is like one of those crazy math whizzes, dude. So I'm all when we go to restaurants, and I was like, dude, add this up for me. He's like one of those. So I can. No, dude, you got a good life ahead of you. Um. So there you are, detransitioning. When did you come out publicly about your detransition?
That was like about a month ago, maybe. I
Oh,
just,
wow.
yeah, like I had, you know, because it's sort of like when I when I transitioned, I sort of like hid myself away, and I kind of did the same thing when I
Oh,
detransitioned. And I don't know, like I guess I don't want to like I feel a little conflicted about speaking out because I don't want to do harm to the trans community, and I think
you're not.
a lot of people are like you know, they demonize trans people when I want to help trans people because I genuinely believe there's a large contingent of trans identified people
Sure.
who are not being benefited by transition, right?
Thank you.
Um, and those are I mean, those are the people like you know, I want to reach, like the people who became
Right.
convinced like egg can crack at 18, and then you know, because I feel like I've escaped like a self-imposed mental prison, like
Hmm.
basically like
Hmm.
um and so yeah.
But you
I
don't. You're
just
not coming off like that from the beginning of this. I wanted to tell. I told you it's such an important thing for a person your age to say this. And in no way, shape, or form do you seem. You wouldn't be sitting with me if you were transphobic or you were anti-trans. You would not be sitting with me. I'm one of the oldest trans people on the block, right? You would just not be doing that. And so I think I do see what you're trying to do here, and I don't think you're in any way saying nobody should transition.
no, yeah, I'm not like
You're not.
I think we should like affirm trans people's identities in literally every situation where it doesn't cause harm to society, like externally,
That's right. And
right?
so
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
but see, I also want to explain to everyone out there and to you as well. I don't identify as a trans person, right? I identify as a male or a man, if that makes sense. And that's why I always separate transsexual from transgender because there is a new thing. It's these
yeah.
trans identified people, and that's okay too. I have no issues with that. But does that mean you have to medically transition? Why can't you just identify with that and maybe take your time and then not it's the medical part that I have a problem with. I don't think people should be rushed into hormones and surgery so fast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's like, you know, once you develop the identity, like I feel like a lot of people feel like they need to take the hormones to like be
I
valid or
know.
whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's again, it's like it's harmful to say that like taking cross-sex hormones will make you. I mean, it's also it's like you know, when I was trans identified, I didn't think that I was a biological woman. I
Yeah.
considered myself to be like, you know, biologically intersex, basically, because
Sure.
my opinion was that sex is a bimodal distribution of secondary sex characteristics, and
Okay.
it's a perspective you can take on it, right? Like you could
Sure,
argue that a transsexual person is like intersex to some degree, but
sure.
but it kind of ignores that you were still sexual dimorphism is inescapable. Like you're still a male or a female fundamentally.
And
Uh,
that's the basis of that's the that's the foundation, and then you can build your house on that foundation. But if your foundation isn't solid and you understand, what's the whole point of transitioning?
yeah,
Right, like, you can't change your sex. That really has to be a part of the message. But
yeah.
how can you say to a 10-year-old, if you take these puberty blockers, then you're going to turn into a boy, when that's literally a complete total lie?
Yeah, like how can you I mean how do you explain to a child I just don't think children can consent to sterilize themselves, you know? Like
100%.
you know,
Yeah,
again, if we had a way to tell for sure which kids would stick with it or which kids would desist, then it would be
that's right.
different. But you can't know. You
That's
got to
right.
give a chance to for a kid to develop a congruent identity,
Thank
because
you.
I think even in like a perfect world that had no transphobia or anything,
Mhm.
that being trans would still not be like you wouldn't want to be trans. It's kind of a it's a painful, it's sort of a painful existence, right? Because like
It's
a little bit
horrible.
yeah, so
It's horrible. I don't celebrate my trans existence. I try to hide it, and other than the fact that I'm out here and open about it. But in reality, when I walk the world and I go somewhere with my partner and our kid, no one knows I'm trans. That's the whole point. I don't. It's hard being trans. It's not easy. I don't want people to know this. And when I go to the men's room, I just kind of sneak into the men's
yeah,
room.
yeah,
Even though I look like a dude, no one would ever. You still have it. You never lose that idea that somebody might clock you as a female,
yeah.
right?
Even if you pass perfectly or whatever, you're still like you always still feel like a little bit of an imposter, so
That's right.
it's just that I feel like it really matters to a lot of people that transitioning will make them the other gender in some
Yes.
essential way, that
Yes.
the other sex is that gender. But it's just not true. It's like you're like if you're a trans woman, you're locked out of like some of the most fundamental aspects of womanhood,
That's right.
like like having children, like and so yeah, it's
Or
I
just
people are
understanding what it means to, I don't know what it means to be a man, by the way, doing this a
yeah,
lot. What does that even mean? I was brought up as a female. I was socialized as a female.
yeah,
I know what I can do to emulate, right? Like I can walk the walk, but in my inside, when I get around a group of dudes, at this point, I think I'm a little more comfortable, but there'll be
yeah,
times where I'm just like I'm not really sure. Am I? Or I'll be in the locker room listening to dudes just say all kinds of crazy shit. I just, especially
yeah,
about women, dude, and I just be like, I don't want to be in here. I just don't want to be in this situation right now. So,
yeah.
yeah, right. So
I mean,
it is.
I never liked all male social no social
Oh,
sex
it's
very
actually.
much at all.
Dude, it's so insane. I feel like an imposter. Like I'm just like they don't even know. Like I'm a Trojan horse watching this whole thing unfold. Right? I know what men really think about women. It's like they would die if they knew that. But so I think it's really awesome that you don't want to hurt the trans community. You're not angry. You seem so not angry about what happened, and you take responsibility.
I'm a little angry.
Talk
I'm
about
angry at
that.
the ideology. Okay, I'm
Talk
angry.
about that.
I feel like I was kind of like sold a lie, where like this idea of gender identity defining who you like, your gender identity and everything, this whole language
Okay,
around
great,
gender,
great.
um I just feel like it's not intellectually coherent. Basically, that it doesn't. It always mattered to me that the gender theory made sense, right? Like it was
Yeah,
important to me that transitioning made me a woman, and I think,
yeah,
and so it just like it frustrates me like sort of an intellectual disagreement about what the categories man and woman should like represent is is taken as like transphobia, when I just think it's like you're telling people they can fulfill that desire in their heart to be the other
right,
sex in some
right.
form, because we all, even though they say gender and sex are different, we
They're
all
not.
conflate them in our minds no matter what. They're intimately connected. We still conflate them
That's
just because
right.
of the way our way human societies work. Like this dream of like sort of a trans utopia where like gender identity, every kid is raised gender neutral and gender identity is considered like a thing. It's never going to happen. Like it's just not
Never.
practical, right? Uh, like Like no,
Nope.
it's crazy. Well, like, you see people like no, we use they them for our child until they're old enough to determine what gender they are, and I'm like
That's
no, dude,
child
this is
abuse.
this isn't practical, right? Like
Because it's about the parents. That's the thing people don't understand. That is so selfish to do to your child. You're not going to put your child, it's like naming your child, Robin, Bird, Bush, something crazy, and then putting them in school with this crazy name. They get teased.
yeah,
You can't put your kid outside of the box of normality, if that makes sense,
yeah.
right? If they start playing with their gender in school, whatever, and stop making a big deal about it, right? But
No,
you
I
hit it.
agree.
Yep,
I think
that's right.
if we enforce gender roles less rigidly on people, people wouldn't feel the need to identify out of those gender roles so they can
That's right.
express themselves, right?
That's
Um,
right.
like, yeah,
Something happened though, because I'm telling you, as an old guy, we used to be like super cool with boys with long hair and girls with short hair, and girls being tomboys. There was such a long period of time where people didn't really get all weirded out by it, and then all of a sudden, this weird trans ideological space came in and got attached to people like you. Well, maybe because I'm a little more feminine or I don't like sports,
yeah.
that must make me want to be a woman. It caught hold of you, you young people.
Yeah, it just like these kinds of ideas like appeal to people. It's like you self actualize by like embodying this cross sex
Yes.
identity. Like for me, it filled the role of like meaning that like for example like religion plays in a lot of people's lives,
Yes.
and that's why like I really think that like forming my trans identity and also losing it, it was not like a logical thing. It was more of like having faith in this cross gender identity and then losing faith in that cross gender identity, right?
Yeah, and then having to deal with all that. So, do you, as a detransitioner, do you have other friends who are detrans, or do you even just kind of separate
Oh,
yourself from?
I've talked to some people online.
Yeah,
The D-Trans subreddit is okay, but there's really not. That's part of why I'm talking about this is because there's really not that many, especially like male detransitioners like
no,
talking about it.
that's right.
Um, and I like I really I don't know. I really think that like my story is like exemplative of like a lot of people who transitioned around 2019, 2020,
Mhm,
2021,
mhm.
around my age. So that I'm talking about it because I just don't believe that my story is like unique, right? Like that I think there are a
It's
lot of
not.
people who could actually like free themselves from that mental prison. Like it's not a prison for everyone, it was for me, I guess.
For a
Um,
lot of you, it is because you're right. Everything you said, you got this certain thing, then you got into COVID. COVID screwed everybody up, and then
yeah, oh, yeah,
that's when the whole thing just started ballooning out. But I do think there are more people than we know who are like you, who are stuck in
yeah.
that space, and that's why I keep saying you're so awesome, dude, because you are going to connect to some young person, whether it be a girl or a boy who's going to say, "Oh, like I am having those thoughts and I don't have to transition, right? I
Yeah,
can
yeah.
be."
Like like sorry.
That's all right.
That's
You can shut the door or do whatever you need to do. That's fine.
there we go. So
Okay.
what did you say? Sorry.
So I was just saying, like you just being very in the you are in the forefront of literally talking about this because there's mostly girls. It's mostly detransition is mostly girls becoming boys and going back. I don't see a lot of
I don't know. It does seem that there are more female detransitioners. I don't know why. I really have no clue. I think I can understand why less of them talk publicly. I think
yes.
that there's probably like
Yeah.
more stigma like attached to male detransitioners,
Yes. There is.
I do think there's yeah, I just think females and males transition for different reasons. I think like ultimately
100%.
uh,
100%. The girls mostly I talked to were struggling with, bad things happening to them and not talking about it and putting it down. And then also it is a man's world and feeling like
yeah.
their life will be better if they become a man. And, trans mask is this identity. And a lot of them just went straight into at 15. I've probably interviewed like 10 girls who took their boobs off at 15.
Yeah, it's wild. Like I mean, it's also I don't see the harm in like waiting to till you're an adult to do that, right? Like what's
There
what's
is
the
no harm. There isn't. That's why I'm saying I also believe it's an ideological space. I do believe that they're pushing to make a point. The adults who are in control are doing this to try to make a point that, see, we help these young people become trans and their whole lives are better. But that's just not the truth. Their lives
Well,
aren't better.
the thing is that I guess they really believe that like that's the case, right? Or like they really
Yeah.
believe that they're they're
Yeah.
they're they're helping these kids.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, I think what the trans community kind of believes, right, is that like 50 years ago, obviously there's a lot more people transitioning now, and that's kind of chalked up to like, oh, people who 50 years ago would not have felt comfortable transitioning are now doing it. But
Sure.
like to some degree, like trans identity is socially constructed. So
It totally is.
yeah,
I,
so it kind of like annoys me when people are like, oh, trans people have been around, like, for all time,
no.
gender non-conforming people have been around, gender dysphoric people have probably been around, but you couldn't identify as trans before you knew that was like
Dude,
a thing.
when
Like,
I did it, nobody was doing it. So bullshit. I'll tell you right now. Okay, the doctor didn't even know what to do. He actually called me a guinea pig. So don't try it. We haven't always been around, and when we were around, we were hiding and like not. We were totally experiments. Fast forward 30 years later, you're still an experiment. You know
yeah.
what I'm saying? So what are they even talking about? It's all a lie, dude, and it's all an ideological space. I believe it's all about money. It's all about sort of a manipulation of
Oh,
humans.
yeah, because you make someone like a lifelong pharmaceutical patient, and
Right.
like the billings like on phalloplasty is like $500,000 or something in billing. Like my FFS was billed at like 120K or something. Like these surgeries, but like there's a lot of people.
What?
People are making bank off these surgeries. Like
They
like
are.
like I don't think the hormones necessarily they're making the same
No,
amounts of profit off of them, but the
no.
surgeries they definitely are.
That's why they're
Uh,
pushing the surgeries and why I'm a lifelong patient, dude. But, again, making that choice. I am so happy that you just like bounced back. It's a miracle. It's an actual miracle. You
I'm
know
getting
that?
there. I'm getting there. I mean, I was really really depressed for like probably 5 6 months. It's only the last month or two that I've actually
That's
started
the
to like.
hormones because your hormonal level was also whacked out. So maybe your hormonal level, and also maybe the fact that you get to talk about this on, sort of a public, because I see your TikTok is doing well, but did you get banned from TikTok?
No, my live got my live occasionally get suspended, but that's because I like to yap, okay, and when I start yapping, I can sometimes like okay, it's actually really hard to like tell what lines you can and can't cross on TikTok.
I know.
Uh, so I mean, I do my first two. I didn't expect to get this much attention when I literally like sat down and made like a 3.5 minute video like one evening,
Wow.
and then it like
Wow.
it like blew up. So
Well, it
yeah.
says something, right? What does that say? It says people want to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah, I guess like I really, but, I don't support adult care bans. Like I think it's really important that
Of course.
adult care isn't banned. So I
Yeah, I
just I
appreciate
don't want
that.
people to use my story to say, or like people say my story. If you want to talk about like maybe like 18 to 25, we have more gatekeeping. I think that may be reasonable, but I don't think
That's
it should
exactly
be.
right.
Yeah.
No, no, that's where I'm at. That's literally where no kids. I'm telling you, my whole thing is no kids. You are 18, do what you need to do, my friend. But don't you dare start telling kids they can change their sex because you can't. Like,
Yeah.
what? Why would you do that? So, well, thank you, Noah, so much for your time. You're such a sweet person. I really enjoyed my time with you. And, I'm always here for you. If you need anything from me, I don't know what it is, but I'm just
Yeah.
here.
No.
I support you. I support you a lot. And I do. And I think, my viewers and subscribers are going to love you so much and leave lots of great comments. Do you have anything you want to say before we go?
Nothing in particular. Just be very sure you're doing the right thing when you take synthetic hormones, guys.
Excellent. I think that's great advice. Leave Noah beautiful comments. That my subscribers are amazing people, and they'll leave you beautiful comments. And if someone wants to reach out to you, you can either give me your TikTok, and I'll put it there.
Yeah, it's
And
TikTok, YouTube or TikTok. 40 Days of Rain on TikTok. It's Sydney Speaks still on TikTok. Or 40
all
Days of
right.
Rain on YouTube.
Okay,
Sydney
great,
Speaks on TikTok. You want to check it
great.
out?
And I'll put the
Yeah.
links there in the thing. So thanks, Noah. Thanks
Yeah,
everybody
no problem.
for hanging out with us today. I hope this helps somebody. Send it to somebody who might need it, even a parent or somebody who's struggling with this. And the whole goal here is to help everybody sort of move forward in a positive way in their life. So have a great rest of your day, everybody,
Yeah, you
and
too.
I'll
Thank you, bud.
talk to you later.